Good afternoon. My name is Heather Harris, and I am a member of the Board of Directors and the Chair of the Communications and Development Committee for the Alliance for Aging, which is the organization that is behind this fantastic event today, made available at no charge for all attendees. The Alliance is a private, not-for-profit agency, which is part of a network of 11 area agencies throughout the state of Florida. You may not know that the Alliance for Aging was actually incorporated in 1988 and was designated by the state of Florida as the area agency for aging for Miami-Dade and Monroe counties. As you will see and hear today, the Alliance is a community leader serving the needs of older adults and people with disabilities. In fact, the goal of the agency is to help people stay at home in the community. So we are thrilled to have you joining from your homes, your places of employment, or other congregate centers. I'm thrilled to welcome you to our fifth in a series of Living Smarter, Aging Smarter webinars. The topic for today's event is Exercise Your Body and Mind. We are fortunate and grateful to Nations Benefits for their sponsorship today. Thank you. Our panelists today are Dr. Nikhil Satchidanand, exercise physiologist and the Associate Director at the University of Buffalo's Center for Successful Aging. We also have Lina Marquez, who is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and licensed nutritionist for Nations Market. And we have Karrie Griffiths, who is the Director of Spa, Fitness, and Wellness for Williams Island Community. We are also honored to have as our distinguished moderator, Susan Holtzman. She is the CEO and President of National Alliance on Mental Illness for Miami-Dade County. Thank you to all of you who will provide your knowledge and expertise today. We are sure to have a great presentation and discussion. This webinar will be available on replay on our website. If you'd like to share with friends and family, it will be found at www.allianceforaging.org. I hope you enjoy today's webinar. But before we begin, I have one last item. I would be remiss if I did not remind you to mark your calendars for Thursday, October 26th, 2023. This will be our annual New Face of Aging conference titled Elements of Successful Aging. It will be a full-day conference that will feature international experts in the field of gerontology, technology, neuroscience, and longevity, just to name a few. So, now that you've marked your calendars and all the speakers are ready, without further ado, it is now my pleasure to turn today's event over to Susan Holtzman to serve as moderator for this exciting webinar. Susan, thank you for moderating today once again. And now the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Heather. And what a pleasure it is to be here once again to discuss these important topics. As many of you know, I am currently the CEO of NAMI Miami-Dade County, but I am also a gerontologist. So the topics that we discuss are of unending interest to me. And today we're going to be talking about health overall, our physical health, and how that relates to our brain and emotional health. I want to share that I am just recovering from my first bout with COVID. I hadn't gotten it, so finally tested negative yesterday. Be careful out there. It's out there, so we want to be careful. And I want to thank all of our panelists. I'm going to be referring to everyone by their first name, so in our audience, I hope we don't cause any confusion. But one of the things about this generation of aging is that most people are indeed living longer. And these are baby boomers, the most educated and affluent generation in America to date. Our physical health is related to our lifestyle, including our diet and our exercise regimen. And then risk factors like smoking, alcohol intake, mental health, etc. Lina, if we could start with you, what should older adults be including in their diet to stay healthy and fit? The Mediterranean diet is often recommended for maintaining a healthy body and brain. And what are the main recommendations of this diet?
Hi, Susan. So yeah, that is definitely a great question. And the Mediterranean diet, it's a wonderful diet. It's a fantastic diet. It's not only for seniors, but for everybody. So I highly recommend that diet. And basically, you know, key things about this diet is, like, for example, using olive oil. Olive oil is definitely a great choice. It's definitely great for seasoning your dishes, for your salads, for preparing, like all the delicious dishes that we prepare at home. And also very important with this diet is to consume fruits and vegetables. Always in a variety of them, eating like a rainbow, like I always say in that old saying, that means incorporating a variety of fruits and vegetables. So aim always for 2 to 3 servings per day of this wonderful, fruits and vegetables that have a lot of good nutrients for our bodies. Another key component of the Mediterranean diet is legumes. So, definitely keeping those in your diet, in consuming at least 3 servings per week. And when I say legumes, some examples of those include, like lentils, chickpeas is another good example. And also beans too, like we can incorporate it in soups and stews and salads, so many options out there. Fish and seafood, definitely great options as well. I highly recommend fatty fish, at least once per week, I'm sorry. And fatty fish is like salmon. Salmon is a wonderful nutrient, like you eat, a dish with salmon and a great salad and some beans and legumes, and you have a wonderful dish that is full of nutrients for your body. And also nuts and seeds, we cannot forget about those. Those are great too for our bodies. They have a lot of nutrients that we need. So those basically are the key recommendations to follow in the Mediterranean diet, and definitely a great diet, not only for seniors, but for everybody.
Thanks very much. So I'm interested, what would you recommend? What's the recommended amount of protein that you should have on a given day or during a week? So when we talk about proteins, I guess we're talking about fish, meats, poultry, as well as legumes and nuts, right?
Yes. And aside from those, it's important to consume also nuts and tofu, because some people prefer to go vegetarian, some people are vegan. So those are important options as well. And yes, protein, it's definitely very important to consume on a daily basis. The individual needs according to conditions, according to age, according to so many things, but definitely, keeping that protein on your plate on a daily basis is key, and it's highly, highly recommended.
Great, thanks so much. And Karrie, maybe not specific to the Mediterranean diet, but in maintaining our health and our ability to exercise, what are some key recommendations that you have about sort of how we eat, when we eat, that kind of thing?
Okay, so first of all,
I'm sorry, that question was for Karrie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I have to be more careful on how I.
That's okay, Lina. I loved your comment already. So it's important to balance your diet throughout your day. Some people say 5 small meals. Some still have the traditional 3 meals a day. I think it depends on when you're exercising, and then what you are eating. But I think the most important thing, and Lina, I would defer to you to comment on it, would be to not eat late at night, because that would disrupt your sleep. And it's also a great way for your body just to take it in and pull in more fat from that, because you're not able to exercise the calories of eating late at night. So I think there's some not great qualities that happen if you go out at 8, 9 o'clock and you're eating a heavy meal. So I think putting your calories earlier in your day, breakfast, lunch, early dinner, and then of course a lot of water throughout the day, especially in these hotter climates, such as everywhere right now, but especially Miami, where it's so hot
Right.
and humid.
Okay, so this idea that eating late at night can actually contribute to weight gain, I wasn't ever sure if that was true, because that prevents me from eating ice cream late at night. But you're telling me that that's accurate, correct?
Yes, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, all right. So that's depressing. So let me ask you, and Karrie, I also wanted to ask you a little bit about pre-made foods. What are good options if we don't feel like cooking? Maybe we don't feel like we have the ability to cook right now. What are good options when it comes to pre-made packaged foods?
So I really encourage anyone, if they're going to do a prepackaged meal, to look at the actual ingredients, which are always listed on the package. So if you can't pronounce what is in that paragraph of ingredients, and they're not like a regular, like an almond or a whole oat, or something that you can pronounce and understand what that ingredient is, then it's probably a preservative or some kind of chemical that would not be recommended to have on a regular basis. But there are a lot of great meal services now. You see them all over the internet and in your mailbox, or that are really quite good. Some are organic, some are made for vegan, vegetarians. They have different calorie counts. So there's a lot of options out there, but please read the label and make sure you understand what you are going to eat.
Okay, so if you don't know what it is, don't eat it.
Right. That seems that seems like that'd be obvious, but it's amazing what we put into our bodies. We take a package and we just like a chocolate bar or something like that, and then we just eat it, right? We're completely we trust the system, but if you start to look at the ingredients, you're half of them you can't pronounce, and you have to look it up, and perhaps that's not the best thing for you.
Great. Okay, that's great information. So Nick, let me ask you, we've talked about this, and I think we started out thinking more a little bit about how does this affect us physically? How does it affect our energy or our weight? But how does what we eat and things like the Mediterranean diet that is high in legumes and fatty fish, et cetera, how does that affect our brain and our brain health?
If you look at the scientific literature around this topic, it's clearly encouraging. The Mediterranean diet is something that is generally proven to be pretty effective, at least in maintaining brain health, brain function, and the structures within the brain over time. There isn't a lot of very large scale work that has been done in this area. Diet-based research is very difficult to do. So I want to be clear that I don't think there's anything out there that says specifically that if you eat these foods or you follow this particular program, that you can, stave off Alzheimer's disease, or that you can reverse that progression over time. But certainly we know that inflammation is a key piece of the puzzle. And so when you can consume an anti-inflammatory diet, that has a huge impact on reducing inflammation in the brain, reducing chronic systemic inflammation throughout the body. And anything that is good for the body is then going to be good for the brain. So maintaining weight is important. Maintaining body composition is critical. Reducing inflammation, as I said, focusing on the things that we can control in diet, reducing processed foods or ideally eliminating it completely. Those are things that we know have an anti-inflammatory impact on the whole body, and that as a result of that, then have an impact on brain function and structure.
Okay, so that's an interesting way to phrase it, to think about eating foods that have an anti-inflammatory effect or will not inflame our systems. I think, when I think about that and brain health, that's easy for me to understand. So thanks so much for that.
Sure.
Now we did mention earlier, Karrie, you talked about the importance of fluids. Lina, I want to ask you about fluid intake. How much do we need to drink a day? Is 8 glasses of water really essential? Because to me, that's an awful lot of water.
Well, the good news, Susan, is that we can hydrate our bodies not only with water. We can definitely drink a variety of fluids. Water is a great option, of course, and the #1 choice, but we can also drink, like 100% juices. We can drink, for example, coffee and tea. And the main recommendation here is to keep, your body hydrated. It is important because, for example, water, that's important nutrient as well. We need water for our bodies to work properly. And something that is very important to mention is that, we need to keep those, fluids that have added sugars to a minimum, definitely. So when I say that, I'm talking about, like those, like, for example, sodas or even juices that we find in the grocery store, but they are packed with sugars and, added sugars. So it's important to drink throughout the day, definitely. So your body keeps working normally as it should be working. But keeping in mind that we can not only hydrate with water, but there are other options, like, for example, dairy as well. That's a good option to hydrate too, like milk and like, for example, soy beverages, and also lactose-free milk, for those that are lactose intolerant. So there are many options out there, definitely, to keep our body hydrated. So the main thing is definitely you need to be hydrated and keep those added sugar fluids to a minimum.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Do you see, are there differences metabolically speaking in consuming, say, 100% juice, right? So like a grape juice, right? Very sweet, versus something that has an added sugar to it. If it's a beet sugar, or if it's, regular cane sugar or beet sugar, are there differences in terms of what the impact on the body in terms of metabolism between those two different substances?
Yeah, definitely. Like for someone who has, someone has diabetes, definitely, they need to keep those natural sugars also at a minimum, because definitely that's going to have an effect on the body as well. That's definitely true.
Okay, thank you.
And then if you're hydrating using, say, as you mentioned, oat milk or soy milk, is that also meeting those dietary requirements, for example, in the Mediterranean diet for legumes or for nuts?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of, eating a variety of foods. And that's why, those are fluids as well, but they also have the benefit of coming from those nuts and those, the things that you need for your body as well. So those are good options.
Interesting. So if you don't like to eat beans, you can drink beans. I mean, I don't mean to make a joke of it, but it creates an option. So, and so Karrie, talk to us a little bit about how our needs for fluid intake change when we exercise.
Well, if you're exercising outdoors, then you really need to drink. They recommend like every 20 minutes that you make sure that you take a sip of water, or maybe a water with electrolytes if it's sunny outside. If you're within a class, always make sure that you remind your students to hydrate, especially if it's a higher intensity class. So I think fluid is, drinking water is always part of the mantra of any exercise program, especially if you're the instructor or the trainer, to always encourage, remind, ask your client, how many glasses or ounces of water you've had a day. It just needs to be really part of the total conversation. I know some of my clients, when they're dehydrated, they don't have the energy, they're maybe a little nauseous. And so if they ever say anything like that, my first go-to would always be, have you had enough water today? Have you had anything to eat? And fairly often that the answer is, no, I really haven't. I don't enjoy water, or, but, and then we stop and we get some water. But it's amazing how when you hydrate, you feel so much better. So it's always being encouraged.
And you mentioned electrolytes. I think so things like Gatorade are drinks that have increased electrolytes in them. There's a lot more out there now. One tip I got from my daughter is I buy an electrolyte powder and I put that into my water bottle. So I'm increasing my electrolyte intake that way. But I do think it's very important for us to understand that the impact that not enough hydration can have on our systems, and we definitely see it a lot in older adults. And so a lack of hydration can cause a mental fogginess. It can lead to things like kidney infections. And I think just in my experience in working with older adults, we do see, especially if people have an issue with incontinence, they tend to reduce their fluid intake. And it also affects the way your medicine is able to work within your body, because when you're not hydrated, your medicine that you're taking doesn't move through your body the way it needs to. So extremely, extremely important to stay hydrated all the time. And Nick, how does that affect the brain, a lack of hydration? Can you give us a little information on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's dependent upon, I guess, on how severe a state of dehydration one would be in. Right, so you can have, if you have a real imbalance in electrolytes, and that has a huge impact on your cardiovascular system and on your cerebrovascular system, and can really have an impact on processing speed, on attention. You know, you get a general fogginess and can actually mimic dementia. So you have patients who are in, say, for example, in nursing homes, who may not be tended to as well if it's maybe not a fantastic living situation. We have seen clinically in some of our participants, you know, where they come in and they're quite dehydrated and they have what looks like dementia or early onset Alzheimer's disease. And it's really that, you know, maybe they are incontinent, so they're not drinking, or a family member is not providing enough for them. So that happens sometimes too. So certainly has a huge impact on cognition. Again, that's on the more severe side of that equation. You know, if you're talking about just sort of a chronic dehydration over time, generally speaking, the body is relatively resilient even at that age, and so they can kind of, the body can adjust, but only to a certain level, and at a certain point they do sort of have significant impairment in their cognitive function.
Interesting. So fluid intake is just of major importance for our overall health, our physical health, our cognitive health, and really mental health too. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to exercise for our body and for our minds. Karrie, can you talk to us about weight loss and gain in older adults? We all know that as we age, our metabolism slows, unfortunately. What's the best exercise for older adults if they want to lose weight?
I think the best exercise, besides walking, I mean, walking would be like the number one exercise, but strength training, I feel, is always left out of the list of types of activities for weight loss, for early onset dementia, for cognition. Making sure that you maintain your muscle mass, your functionality, your independence is all caught up in your strength. So I always highly recommend strength training also for weight loss. But it's empowering to see, I have some clients that are well into their 80s, and when we can move up in weight, and I mean, pretty significant, 15-pound dumbbell presses, over time, getting to that level is incredible. And the empowerment that the client feels and the independence she feels is so motivational. And so would that help us with weight loss? Yes, it would. But I think more importantly, it's everything else that goes with it. Walking, aerobics, dancing, Zumba, all of those activities are great because a lot of them are social. They have coordination, reflexes, all of those elements are all wrapped up into that. But I would like to stress the other side of the gym, which so many older people are afraid of. They're afraid to go into a gym with weights and machines. It's intimidating. We've put in programs into my facility in helping that, and helping, having classes just for seniors, come in and not be so intimidated. So I think I would really push the strength training.
So that's very interesting to me. I think maybe we can do another bit of a myth buster here. My understanding is it's harder to build muscle the older you get. Would that be accurate? Or but what you're saying is, even if that's the case, don't give up on it. But
it's never too late to start. And I think Lina would probably say, well, that's where the protein comes in. You know, you want to make sure a lot of older people don't have enough protein in their diet to help that muscle build. But I have certainly seen clients progress in their strength over time, little by little. You know, you need to be cautious, of course, but they need the protein, the water, everything else, their nutrition to go with that.
and so, as you mentioned, at any age. So if actually getting to the gym doesn't work for you, using hand weights at home while you're sitting in a chair, is that a good alternative?
Sure. There's great things you can do just sitting in a chair, you know, and moving and doing hand weights, or, you know, depending on what if you have any injuries or whatever, you know, you can do shoulder presses, or cross body exercises are also really good. I don't know, maybe Nick can speak to that as well, but going across the midline of the body, all of those types of movements are great for the mind, not only the body, but for the mind as well. You know, balancing exercises. There's a wealth of things you can do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's interesting because, and I'll geek out for just a minute here. So we had a group of older adults, veterans, and we ran them through a high intensity interval training program at the VA. So it was recumbent cycling 3 days a week, and it was short sessions. So they came in 3 days a week. They did about 11 minutes total of exercise. So it was a 1 minute high intensity, 1 minute rest, sort of recovery, pedaling slowly. And they would just bounce back and forth like that for 10 minutes, and then a little bit of a cool down. And within that small population that we're looking at, we're actually seeing the cross-sectional area of their muscle, the quadricep muscle, increase. So muscle fiber is really thin, like a fiber optic cable, right? So if you take that and you cut it, that diameter is actually increasing. And these are 78 to 82-year-old, you know, older adults and they very much came in with the expectation that was not going to happen. They were not going to get stronger. They weren't going to get, you know, see a physical change in their body and see a functional change. And, you know, just looking at alone just at grip strength is a significant predictor of mortality. So if you can improve somebody's grip strength, their overall body strength, through, you know, resistance exercise, through some form of exercise, some form of physical training, that has a huge impact on every body system, you know, as Karrie had mentioned, you know, about balance, self-efficacy around avoiding falls, avoiding, you know, things like that is a huge impact. And the empowerment, I want to second that, because the empowerment piece of this is so critical, you know, and showing people that they're capable of doing something that 3 months ago they didn't think they could do, you know, and getting them up to that point, standing on one foot, you know, something very simple like that has a huge impact on avoiding falls and ultimately on mortality and keeping people outside of those institutions for as long as possible.
So thank you so much for jumping in on that. I really appreciate that. So Karrie also mentioned cross body. I'm not sure if that was referring to the physical or if that has a cognitive impact, but this kind of exercise and weight training, obviously, you know, it builds confidence. That is an amazing thing. It also can build community. And we know those things are good for cognitive health. Any other impacts on cognitive health?
You know, the work that I do is really focused on creating environments in which socialization and social support can take place. So I do a lot of exercise-based, you know, interventions in the community. So what's interesting is, I think we tend to forget sometimes as people get older that, you know, just the aging process oftentimes is isolating. And if they have a little bit of mild cognitive impairment already, that adds to the problem of social isolation. If you have hearing loss, that then contributes to social isolation. So to me, whenever you can find ways to keep older adults plugged in to their environments, plugged into the world around them, they're much more able then to manage their own lives and their own environments, and then to maintain their independence for as long as possible. So, to me, we try, at least in the work that I do, and we try to focus on creating opportunities for people to be social. And even if it's a very simple exercise that maybe is not that innovative or not that interesting, when you create it and you plug it into a social environment, it's much more appealing and much more interesting. And to me, it's one of the key pieces that I think we tend to forget. As people get older, there is that tendency. Maybe they don't drive anymore, so now you have to find a way to get them to the classes. You have to find a way to get them together. But when you can do that, it's in my work, we had one group at a YMCA where we had this one gentleman who, from the beginning of the program to the end, all he did was complain. He groused and complained, and it became his shtick. But he always showed up. He never missed a class. And it was because his two buddies would literally drive to his house and pick him up every week for class and then bring him in. And he would never admit it, but I think he really, by the end of it, had a really good time, and it, had and benefited tremendously. But that social piece is so critically important. And I think we have to work on community-based systems and put systems in place. And that's why a lot of the work that I do at the university is really focused on seeing what the university can do, what the Department of Internal Medicine can do for community organizations who already have the expertise. YMCAs are great places to deliver programming for older adults. Sometimes they just need a little bit of support. They need a little bit of funding, or they need some equipment, or they need some expertise on the measurement side of things. And that's really, I think, a critical piece of that. But I really like promoting socialization and social support in the context of exercise for older adults.
They have asked me to demonstrate a cross-body exercise. So the peanut gallery chimed in. So I don't know if I can stand up here. Let me see if I can scoot back. But so I don't know how far this background's going to go. But all I mean by cross-body exercise is going across the body, like right hand to left knee, left hand to right knee. And you can do this sitting in a chair. You can do it standing up as I'm doing. You can go behind you as well. This is a little bit more difficult at first for some of my older clients to go behind you. I'm touching my foot. I don't know how much further I can go back. But, simple things like this that we all did a long time ago in like low and high impact aerobics. The other exercise I do is a little more complicated, but I've done this in teaching my water classes, which is all 70 plus, all the way to 100. I have in some of my water classes. So I always start with one hand, and I'm always going up and down. Very simple exercise, right? One hand. Then I take the other hand, and I'm going up to the side, back down to the side. And I repeat this many, many times. And then, of course, I put it together. So you have your arms are doing different things, right? I was going to say different things at the same time, but you're doing both arms at the same time, but they're doing different things. And then you switch hands, right? So it's difficult. But sometimes I can get some of the members to actually do it. And it's like that success, but it's also really making your mind work, that left and that right, the up and the down. And so exercises like that, that's what I mean by like cross body. And again, all this can be done sitting down as well. So I hope that helps.
No, that's fantastic. It helps a lot. And one thing that came to mind for me, one of the things I do for exercise is I dance, and I do partner dancing. And there's partner dancings for all levels of physical health. One of the slower ones is English country dancing, where It's like what you see in the movies, the costume dramas, where you step to the middle and you touch hands and you go in a circle and step back. And it's social and it's physical and you're connecting with the music. And I've been doing contra dancing and other types of social dancing for years. And we have people in our dance community that are in their 90s and are still out there on the dance floor and never miss a beat. So I think it has great benefit. I wanted to ask, I mean, specific to cognitive decline and cognitive function, because also some of the things that we're seeing out there, there are a lot of sort of brain training tools. So Nick, are these effective and impactful, the kinds of, so I can certainly see what Karrie described when you have to coordinate your body to do different things. You know, cognitively, that's a stretch and you really have to work to get it done. But some of these are that you see online, these kinds of training tools are a little more sedentary. Are they effective?
So they're effective at training specific tasks. So if you play a memory game, and I won't talk about what the names of these products are. There are over 200 different companies now that are marketing products like this. Some are marketed to older adults, some are marketed to, to executives who they want to remain sort of attentive and focused and all of that. But they're only really good at improving performance on a given task. So if you play a memory game, you're going to get better at that memory game because practice makes perfect. What we know for sure, at least with the current literature out there, the scientific literature out there, what we know is that that improvement in that performance on a given memory game does not necessarily transfer to improvement in our ability to manage our lives and to do the things we need to do every day. So if you need to, remember where your car is after an hour of grocery shopping, or you need to, follow a conversation in a busy restaurant with a couple of people, we're not seeing benefits, all the way out to those distant sort of places. So as I said, sort of practice makes perfect in the sense that, you can train that particular skill using that particular game. Generally speaking, the scientific literature would say that you're just going to get better at playing that particular game. The things that really seem to benefit cognitive function and then function outside in the real world, helps you, helping you to manage your life better and navigate your environment, really are the things that we've talked about, which is, multitasking, creating, like the more challenging, the more difficult activities. Those are the activities that are really going to help. Sitting in front of an iPad for an hour and playing a memory game or playing some kind of a game, that's, kind of that mimics some of the cognitive tasks that we have to do. If it's a one-dimensional game like that, really, they're not particularly effective.
Interesting, and good to know. So those more experiential challenges are the ones that are going to be healthier for us.
And the ones that really mimic everyday life, like the things we have to do every day. Very rarely do we have the luxury of being able to singly focus on one thing. Right, you go to the bank, you have to multitask. You go grocery shopping, you have to multitask. Driving is multitasking. These are all things you have to do that require lots of different sort of divided attention among several different domains. So the training component that we use that we, if we want to improve cognition or even to preserve it, to me, in my mind, it should mimic those same activities. So pairing a cognitive task with a motor task is critically important, or motor or cognitive. But the idea really is to be multitasking as much as possible, and that's really what seems to be benefiting people more than those single domain tests or challenges.
And what about the idea of?
I'm sorry.
Who did I jump on?
Go ahead, Susan. Go ahead.
Well, the idea of learning something new, that learning something new or a new skill is going to have a more positive impact than, again, something repetitive.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So learning a new language, new instrument, things like that. Those are the things that really seem to challenge the brain in a way that forces it to grow and to evolve. And again, we're very early on in some of these studies, and we haven't seen very large scale studies that would show that, okay, if you do these three things, or you learn this particular instrument, or you learn this particular, or you do this particular exercise, that you're definitely going to benefit and that you're going to see functional benefit over time. But the science out there in terms of what is good for the body is good for the brain certainly has been around for a long time. So we know that, there are key pieces that are going to be of benefit. It's really now we want to understand more about what is the dose, right? How much do we need to benefit or to see those improvements over time? And then what are the actual exercises or, habits, health related habits, or, other factors that have an influence on cognition.
Okay, and Karrie, did you want to?
Well, I was just going to kind of tag on to what you're saying about learning something new. A lot of people are picking up like the pickleball and playing games. So it's very social. We have a thing on our wall. It's like a big video game, but you play it with other people, and you hit like a tennis ball against a wall, and you aim for things, and they're kind of like true life games. And it just all along that whole line, learning something new, learning a new game. The other part of my life is as a musician, so I actually teach a lot of adults instrument and music, and the amount of skill that it takes to learn something new, to put the fingers with the lungs, breathing, reading music, which is a language unto itself, learning that skill as well has been, I always see that in the list of things to do to keep your brain alive and active and so forth. So just tagging on to Nick.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. So Lina, let's get you back in here. We got a little just out of order. These are all things that we were going to discuss, but another question that we have when we talk about our diet, our exercise regimen as we're older, and our overall health is about weight. So as we age, like I said a while back, it's become obvious to me that our metabolism slows. And so the expectations that I have on my ability to lose weight, what weight loss looks like on me at my age, because my skin is not as elastic as it was. It doesn't look the same. I don't start looking like I'm 18. And so what is overweight for an older adult? What is the impact on being overweight and also underweight? Because we do see that. What does being underweight look like, and what is the impact that has on our health?
Well, definitely a lot of impact, being overweight. The thing that I hear the most is the impact on the knees. And so this is something that people start suffering from the knees, and then the doctor recommends them to lose weight, or we as dietitians recommend the same thing, because obviously the body weight puts a lot of pressure on the knees, and obviously that's not very good for you. Another thing is, a lot of patients that I see with diabetes, unfortunately, their diabetes gets even more complicated when they are, when they are overweight. So definitely, losing weight and keeping us at a healthy way, helps with a lot of aspects of our bodies and also of our health. So definitely, recommendations for, that's why we talk about eating a balanced diet, because when you eat a balanced diet, you include those vegetables, you include those fruits, those legumes, those beans, that is going to help you to keep your body in a healthy way. That's, another thing that it's very important to keep in mind. It's, consuming products that are lower in saturated fat, lowering those, those fats that are not good for you, low in sugar, even low in sodium, because, consuming those things that are not good for you in excess, obviously is going to help you gain weight. And that's something that we don't want. So consuming most of those whole foods, like focusing your daily intake on produce, on low-fat dairy products, on lean meats. That's a good way to definitely maintain that a healthy body weight, or to help you lose that undesired overweight that some people have.
So is there a certain calorie number target we should shoot for, or is there, because it's a tough thing. What do you recommend?
Yeah, definitely. There is obviously vary on individual needs, because it depends on, if you're a woman, if you're a man, and on the height, on your body composition. But definitely, yes, you need to keep those calories, under control. Like most people need a 2,000 calorie diet per day. So that's something, 2,000, per day, most people. But some may need less, some may need more. So it's important to, like when eating packaged items, because sometimes if you don't see or you don't know how to calculate those calories, it's challenging. So when looking at those packaged foods, that you're consuming or you're about to consume or purchase, it's important to read at those nutritional facts panel labels. It is really important to understand those. So for example, the first thing that I tell patients is to look at the serving size, because it means that, though that information that is in that label, it's per serving size. It's not per the entire package. So if you're looking at a package that per serving size, for example, it's 500 calories and you only need 1,500 calories per day. So there you go. It's probably not the best choice for you. So it's important to definitely keep, those calories in mind and be thinking about those.
And what about alternatives to those fattening foods we like? Like, is soy ice cream a better alternative, or just don't eat ice cream?
No,
I'm sorry,
yogurt is a very good alternative to ice cream. But, obviously, Susan, I always say, eat a variety of foods. Everything fits in a healthy diet. So keeping that balance. So it doesn't mean that you have to entirely, remove ice cream from your diet. That's not, for some people, it's not realistic. So that's not a real good recommendation. It's, eating sporadically, if this is something that you really enjoy, you're not going to cut it from your diet from the one day to the other entirely. So it's just keeping those and keeping in mind those portion sizes. If you really enjoy ice cream, just eating a good portion, it's the way to start controlling those calories, instead of eating like entire package or the entire, tub that it comes in, just one small ice cream, serving that you can enjoy, and start, lowering it like that. And obviously looking for options like yogurt, which is lower in fat.
So let me ask this question of all of you, really. It is, we tend to get fixated on weight as a number. But as Karrie mentioned, when you exercise and you build muscle mass, I believe that might increase your weight, especially if you maybe were underweight. So if we're not looking at weight as our indicator, what should we be looking for in our bodies as far as activity, what we're able to maintain, what we're able to do to know that we're at the right weight? Because there's a lot of, especially I'll say in this generation, there's a lot of sort of dysmorphia. Women think we're supposed to be extremely thin. I grew up in the Twiggy generation. I'm supposed to be extremely thin. Really not healthy. So can you talk about, and Nick and Karrie, maybe you can address this too. Like a friend of mine just lost 20 pounds and he said now he can tie his shoes without straining, which I never thought.
Good.
That's huge. And who knew? Because I don't think we really think that way. So Karrie, what kind of things have you seen as people start exercising and maybe, just lose a minimal amount of weight?
Well, I always start with a body composition test. So we have a very good machine where I work, and I always focus on the muscle mass, how lean, not the weight, because fixating on a weight doesn't lead to good, healthy habits in my years of experience. So if we look at the lean, the percentage of body fat, so maybe someone's at 25% body fat, but maybe they should be down around 22 or 21 because percentages go down very difficult to lose the percentage of body fat. Then we go back to the gym with strength training and a balance of aerobic activity. I always try to recommend things that they like. If they like to dance, let's do some aerobic activity with dancing, but maybe they just like being on the step mill or the treadmill or running or, whatever they will do is what I want to encourage. But I always encourage going into the gym. The gym is a place that if you want to really make a change, that's where I see the most change being made, is 2 to 3 times a week inside of the gym, and then you balance the rest of your week with other activities, fun, social activities. And that's where I see the greatest change, along with diet, of course. Diet is, Lina will tell you, the diet is 85% of weight loss. But, now we have all of these other medications, Ozempic and the shots that everyone is taking that just takes that muscle mass right out. I mean, that is the current trend that I see in my facility, especially. Maybe Nick and Lina can see something different, but in the older population, the ones who don't really want to put that whole, that work into it, are taking these medications and they just lose their muscle mass and they're not as energetic or strong. So anyway, I'll leave that all on the table there.
Yeah, I tend to focus on body composition and function. I think about, looking at our participants, and even in the community, it's not about body mass, about just the weight, but as we've talked about, it's really about that body composition and reducing body fat or maintaining body fat at an optimal level. And, and then I ask people, okay, what do you want to be able to do? What can you do now? And, oftentimes it's simple, little things. You should be able to walk around the block without being winded, without having pain. And I also think about, when it comes to weight loss, I think about the behavioral component more than I do the outcome. So I think about, because tomorrow morning I can't wake up and choose to weigh less than I weigh today. But tomorrow morning I can wake up and choose one thing, just one thing that I can do to get a little bit, to move a little bit further forward along that path to getting to that weight loss that I desire. So I can take a walk. I cannot eat the bacon and 2 eggs and all that stuff for breakfast that I usually eat every morning. I don't, but I'm saying one might eat those things. So I think about the choices that we make, and I try to encourage our participants to make those choices and to take off, to take little, small choices here and there, to make those little choices. And you're not waking up the next morning and saying, okay, now today I'm going to start going to the gym 5 days a week. And I'm going to start, putting in 2 hours a day, and I'm not going to eat anything that I used to like eating, because I think that's very self-sabotaging. We have a tendency as human beings to do that, where it's this all or none thinking. And that generally doesn't work for most people. But I think, thinking about manageable changes and making those small changes along the way does help.
I definitely agree with you, Nick, on that. And I've seen that a lot, when people try to go very drastic on the changes.
Right.
Obviously, it's not realistic. They're going to get bored and they're going to fail, and they're not going to achieve their goals. So, little by little, reducing portions, or, changing one thing for the other, one thing that it's better than the other, like the example that you mentioned, Susan, changing yogurt for ice cream for a little bit, and then you achieve your goal, but it takes, small steps, definitely.
So we've heard so many great things. I just want to recap a little bit. We've talked about the importance of a healthy diet and what that includes, which is a wide variety, including legumes, nuts, proteins that are healthy, and fish is high fat fish. We've talked about the importance of hydration, and that hydration does not have to only come from water. So you don't have to drown yourself in water, but you do have to watch yourself to make sure you're hydrated, because that can just affect every system in your body. And then we've talked about the importance not just of exercising, but exercising in a setting where you are, again, using multiple, having multiple inputs. So going to a gym, or going to, so not everyone has a gym or a gym membership, but going to a park where you're walking around a park and you're interacting with other people. And you are also, as Nick talked about, having to use our cognitive skills while we exercise. So if you're walking on a path in a park and there's other people coming by and you have to navigate. And so thinking of exercise, not just as only a physical activity, but as a social and cognitive activity, so that you're really getting the full benefit of it. I think that that's an interesting way to look at that I personally hadn't thought of that much. I tend to go to the gym in my building. I'm the only one there. I don't, and I get my work done and I'm out. And so what I'm learning is I'm not getting the full benefit. So that's great to know. We only have a couple minutes left. I would just want to ask each one of you, Lina, we can start with you. Any last thoughts you want to share, or anything you learned here that maybe you weren't as keyed into as you may be now?
No, definitely, very interesting what everybody's saying. The panelists have very good comments and things that we learned today. But I wanted to end up with a comment about a question that I get very often. And it's, pretty much how to eat on a budget, and how to eat healthy on a budget. That's pretty common too. So, I just wanted to mention, it takes a lot of planning. So, if you're eating on a budget, it takes a lot of planning, be mindful of those sales that the supermarkets have, like those BOGOs, buy one, get one free. So take advantage of those. And also, consider, planning, your meals around what it's on sale, those vegetables that are on sale, those fruits that are on sale, those meats that are on sale, so it's good to, plan those meals and incorporate those products throughout the week. And also very important, when those sales are happening, try to freeze those vegetables, try to freeze those fruits so you can use them later on. Another very good option is to consider some meatless meals per week. So instead of, buying meat that's sometimes more costly, you can get your protein from plant proteins like beans and tofu that, tend to be, more affordable. And also it is very, very important. And I always recommend to focus on generic brands or those store brands that are, always sometimes more affordable than the other brands. So those are, some tips that I wanted to mention to people that, wanted to keep the budget.
Thank you so much. Great points. I really appreciate you adding that in, because that's sort of closing the equation here on how we can change our lifestyle and do it in a way that we can afford to do it. I think we're about out of time here. I want to thank all of you so much for participating. I learned a great deal today. I know our audience did also. And we look forward to hearing from you again someday in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.